Hello, everybody. I'm really, really pleased that we're talking to Alison Turton today. Fabulous milliner. And she's so creative because she's got two strands to her business. She's got her theatrical millinery and her bridal and mother of the bride side. And what we're going to do is we're going to find all about her and all about what she does and how she got into the business. So welcome, Alison. It's lovely to talk
Thank you
to
very much.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
What I'd like to know first off is sort of how you got into hats.
Well, I've been a milliner for about 24 years, and kind of going right back, I went to art college, and then I went to did a theatre costume course in Liverpool, which I learned how to make period costumes, fantasy costumes, all sorts of things, and we did a little bit of millinery on that course. But that was kind of it. And then when I left college, I got a job at the Leeds Playhouse as a wardrobe assistant. And I did that for about 2 years. And whilst I was there, I discovered this fabulous lady doing this fabulous job called costume prop maker and milliner. And it just so happened that she was going back to Australia and her job became available. And I spent some time with her in her amazing workroom, kind of picking up different bits and pieces. And the job was kind of offered to me and on a trial basis, just to kind of see how I felt about it and what I could do. And I didn't really know much more than what I'd learned from college. But I just kind of learned as I went along, really. And so the job involved millinery. A lot of it was millinery, and all kinds of amazing millinery projects. But the job also involved dyeing fabrics, special effects on costumes, dyeing shoes, dyeing fabrics, doing embroidery pieces, doing embellishments, absolutely everything.
Everything to do with the
Yeah,
costume. So
yeah,
it wasn't just the hat, it was everything
no,
that went with that
yeah,
to make
exactly.
the outfit perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you say you learnt as you went along. Was that difficult working in a theatrical situation where you're given I know we're going to talk about a couple of pieces a bit further on in the interview, but you're given a picture and you're told, can you make that? I mean, how does it work? Do you try and do sketches, or do the theatre tell you what they want? How does it work really? Because I must admit, working from scratch, working from just his picture, make something can be quite difficult. So
yeah. So I think, I mean, it's such a long time ago, some of them, but I guess a lot of it, you always kind of learn from your mistakes, don't you?
yeah,
We try to. So a lot of it, I tried out ideas, and sometimes they worked, and sometimes they didn't. But I think because I'm naturally a very creative person, it was um, sometimes difficult. Some of the projects have been difficult, and some not so much. So I think because I've got that ability there anyway, and I can kind of
you can see the
work out,
structure.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
work out how something might be put together in a 3D form. And
yeah.
some designers produce the most beautiful drawings, beautiful coloured drawings, full costume, full headpiece or
Mm.
hat, absolutely amazing. And other costume makers will sometimes just give you a photocopy of something they've found in a book. And some costume makers, or designers rather, won't really give you much of anything.
So
So
sometimes do you have sometimes are you able to put your own interpretation on an
sometimes,
idea?
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think at the end of the day, the majority of designers do know what they want. Sometimes they just can't vocalize it, or they can't kind of, maybe they don't quite know how it will be made or something like that. So it's sort of It's my job to work that out. My job to try and make it to as exactly as I can to their design, but bearing in mind a fabric that might be used, or the weight of it, or what might happen to that on stage, or
Yeah,
character.
that was going to be my next question. I mean, I imagine that theatre work is so. I mean, if you're making a hat for a mother of the bride, she's only going to be wearing it all day, one day,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah.
When it comes to the theatre, what do you have to take into account? Do you have to, like makeup, how long they're wearing it, how many times they've got to wear it? Does all that, impact on your design?
Yeah, absolutely. Because yes, I mean, some actors will just walk onto the stage wearing a hat, and they'll walk off again wearing their hat, and that's really simple. Sometimes a hat needs to be put on stage, but it might be something that is difficult to keep on your head, something that's kind of perching, or something sort of extravagant, or fantasy
Heavy,
type.
or
Sometimes they're dancing. Dancing is quite a big thing. So I guess you don't want to be looking at the hat and thinking, how is that staying on the head, or why is it doing that? You don't want it to wobble. You don't want it to look out of place. And also, it's got to be really comfortable for the actor. It can't shade their face. So, if you were going to the races, you could wear some massive, great big brimmed hat. But on stage, it will give them shadow across their face. It might also interfere with their microphones. If the sound bounces against the brim, that interferes with any singing. Singers can't really have things sort of near to their ears. Vision as well, they need to be able to see
all around.
That's a big thing. So you don't want the actor sort of having to look down at their feet. They're meant to be staying a line. They need to be able to kind of concentrate, and also it's got to be really comfortable. Because if an actor's uncomfortable, it will just show instantly on their face. So it has to.
Yeah, and I suspect if they're doing, say, a matinee and then an evening performance, they've got to. They don't want to end up a sweaty mess.
Exactly. And a lot of it comes down to so you have however many weeks rehearsal. Sometimes it's 4 weeks rehearsal, sometimes it's longer, depending on the type of show. And in that time you'll have fittings. So you might have 1 or 2 fittings with the costume. Then the costume and the lighting and the set is then kind of put together on stage for a tech week, so technical rehearsal, where everything is tried out basically on the stage, the whole run of the show. And that's when you find out whether a hat or a costume will work. The other sort of kind of part of my job is distressing a hat or a costume. So quite often you make something really beautiful, or I'm given a costume that's absolutely beautifully made, and you have to completely wreck it because that's what the character needs. So it has to be sprayed into, ripped, grated into, frayed, all of it has to be bashed in, and that's a bit hard to take. But if you don't do it, you have to sort of just do it and go with it, otherwise it doesn't look right. So you can't. Sometimes, many costumes go onto the stage and they are completely broken down because they wouldn't look right if they were just starched and bright and neat.
New looking.
New. It doesn't look right, so it has to be worn in for the character, or
it has to look like he's taken that brim off a million times, or
exactly. Worn in, held, been worn every day.
Greasy fingers.
All of that. And if you've got to do that to something that you spent hours making, it's a bit, but then it works, because then when you see it on stage and you think, well, it fits the character and it fits the, the play.
So what was Alison, what I'd like you to do is tell us all about one particular thing that you made for the theatre. So you tell me about it and how it came about and what production it was for.
Well, a few years ago, I made a crown for a play at Birmingham Rep, called Edmond de Bergerac, about the playwright who wrote Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah.
And in the play is a lady called Sarah Bernhardt, who was a French actress, and she was in some of Edmond's works. And in the play, she wears this particular crown. There's a lot of images of her wearing this crown in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this when I made this, but actually it was two crowns. So the flowers on the crown was actually separate to the crown. It was two pieces put together.
And we're going to see an image of the original crown now on Sarah Bernhardt. And I can see what you mean. It was sort of two in one.
Yeah, it was a 2-in-1. So obviously for the Magic of Theatre, it needed to be light and easy to put on. It couldn't be kind of a weighty thing. So I decided to make it from Varaform. So Varaform it has a thermoplastic resin in it. So when you heat it with hot water or hot air gun, it softens. So you can mould with it and you can shape it, and then when it dries, it hardens again. But it's really, really light. You can cut it with a dining knife. You can spray it to colour it, and you can stick things on it. So I decided that would probably be the best thing to use because it was going to be really lightweight. I could make you'll see on the crown, the flowers are really fine.
Yes,
strips to them. So I thought by cutting the Varaform, you could get that kind of those fine lines on it, and I could glue various beads on it and stones and things. But it was still quite. I mean, it was a little bit heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortably heavy.
Not like a metal crown would have been.
No, not like a metal crown at all. But it gave that lightness to it, so it just looked very lightweight. So that worked really well. And with the flowers, I could then heat the Varaform, mould them, let them dry, and then at the end, when I got all the shapes together, then I sprayed everything. And then I embellished the flowers and the crown with kind of various jewels and things.
Your work is so varied, isn't it? You could be doing a production for an opera 1 minute and a pantomime the next, and something else. So are we going to talk about The Wizard of Oz now?
Yes.
Which is fabulous.
Yeah.
We all know that story. So what was the hat that you made for that production?
So this was a hat for Miss Gulch, who, aka the Wicked Witch.
Yeah.
And the designer kind of specified something that would look kind of quite sharp and quite beak-like. So he wanted the brim to have this kind of very severe point to it. Now, obviously, a lot of millinery that I do, you don't have an exact block.
No.
You have to kind of cobble it together. So you have to use, several different blocks to try and get the shape that you need. So the crown for this hat was just a simple crown shape. So it was all blocked in buckram, several layers of buckram, and then hardened with stiffener. And the brim, it was curled up at the back, so I had to use like a turned up brim block to get that. But then it was shaped kind of up at the sides and going around to this point at the front. So I had to kind of mould it and shape it with a bit of steaming, and then I had to wire it. And eventually I got this really sort of beautiful curve on it and this beautiful beak shape that was like really pointed at the front and looked really severe and quite nasty sort of looking hat. It's not a pretty hat, it's like an angry, nasty hat, which is what the character is. She's not a nice person. And then it was all covered in suede. So suede seamed for the crown, and then covered onto the brim, and really pulled tight to kind of get it really nice and smooth.
Smooth.
Suede isn't particularly easy to work with.
No, I must
So I
admit,
had to,
leather and suede are not my favourites.
no,
It's
no,
a lot of hard
it was
work
a bit tricky.
and
Yeah,
hard on the fingers.
yeah, definitely hard on the